So, dudes, I'm going to be taking a look at the patch notes for the mid-season balance changes in Commanding Force that should be coming out, soon. I would assume, relatively soon. I haven't been paying attention to most of this stuff. I am in the process of moving, which will happen relatively soon here, probably by the end of the week. As you can see, I'm in a temporary arrangement here, so just kind of, don't worry about it, okay?
This tier list is sponsored by Keeps. Keeps is a service that helps guys deal with male pattern baldness. 2 out of 3 guys are going to experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they reach age 35. With Keeps, you can get top-tier care for your hair without ever having to leave your computer desk, which is super convenient. But they don't just deal with hair loss specifically, they also help you take care of the hair that you already have on your head, with all sorts of shampoos and conditioners as well. Keeps will help you get a custom-built treatment plan specifically for your needs. Hair loss stops with Keeps. To get a special offer, go to keeps.com/Gregor. That's KEEPS.com/Gregor, or click the link in the description. Thanks again to Keeps for sponsoring this video.
So, the biggest talk of the town for this patch was a change to Tachanka. As you can see here, Tachanka's win delta is one of the lowest of any defenders in the game. Only Clash is lower. He doesn't get picked very much, and when he does get picked, he doesn't really have a lot of influence throughout the course of the round, or at least in Emerald and above, he does not. The attacker win delta, this doesn't really particularly surprise me. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this. I am kind of shocked that Sens is down here, but Siege is a context-based game, so there are going to be operators that look like they're out of place if you don't properly factor in whether the gadget is being used to its fullest extent or not. I believe Sens in this situation is weak because Sens requires a significant amount of coordination that can work under the right circumstances. However, Tachanka, I do not believe fits in this bill. Tachanka's win delta is considerably low because of his competition. He is an area denial character, and he is competing with Smoke and Goyo. Smoke and Goyo are better in 90% of situations for that job, and we'll get to that in a little bit more, talking about the specific changes that they're doing for Tachanka. Ban rates for attackers don't surprise me. Again, people don't know how to deal with Thatcher. I'm not really sure why Thatcher is still getting banned as much as he is. I don't think that... I think that this is a comfort ban more than anything else. I don't believe people are doing this out of a strategy thing. It is ranked. It's not competitive. So, these numbers are going to be more about comfort than anything else, not necessarily like a lot of strat involvement, because bans and competitive are very selective, right? They're based off of what the opponent, what you anticipate the opponent doing. So in this instance, it's a little bit more difficult to verify whether or not a ban is going to work in your favor from a strategy point of view. Same thing going on here, in console. Like Capkin's not Capkin isn't an operator like really worth banning in my opinion, right? But because it's a comfort ban, it's just your personal enjoyment that you get out of playing the game. How much attention do you want to allocate to looking at a doorway? Evidently, a lot of people in console don't want to look down at a doorway every time they enter the building. And we got Mira, Cade, Valk. I'm not particularly surprised by any of these bans. If we were to juxtapose this against a competitive ban chart, you would see Solus way up here, Azami way up here. So they do get a little bit of ban rate just because I think we're in Emerald and above, and then sometimes that does factor into the decision to make a ban. But for the most part, ranked bans are really just kind of comfort bans, not necessarily done out of a strategy in mind. So we'll go to the Tachanka launcher change and then kind of talk about this a little bit more. We're also going to touch up on the other aspects of the patch that I think are kind of interesting. But the big thing here is, Tachanka. We're going to compare to Goyo and Smoke. Again, no dip. So now I can actually get into the mechanical reason why Tachanka suffers. Okay? So Tachanka, especially in this very aggressive, very gunner-centric kind of meta, Tachanka switches to a third weapon entirely that leaves him extremely vulnerable in case he gets into a gunfight. Whereas you have Goyo, who can literally just shoot the canister with his gun by adjusting his crosshair placement a little bit, and Smoke, who's set and forget, right? He can toss it behind cover. It covers a very wide radius. He can detonate it instantly, or he can pocket it for a little bit while still keeping his gun up. These options are much more flexible in terms of actual engagements, right? How vulnerable are you in terms of gunfighting? Tachanka, he's out there. He just sits like a duck, just waiting to get shot, waiting to get swung. And his gadget doesn't really do a whole lot to begin with. If we're looking at this, right, he can shoot his fire a pretty significant distance, but why would you do that, when you can just use Goyo if you want to block something off from far away? Tachanka also, his range of his fire is considerably small, at least compared to his peers, right? So he takes a very long time to get going. He puts himself in a position that's more dangerous than his peers. There's just too many downsides, right? He doesn't have enough in terms of usability and in terms of the effectiveness of the gadget itself to justify bringing him over Smoke or Goyo. And this is something that Ubisoft seems to be aware of. So what they want to do instead is they want to offset this vulnerability aspect by just giving him a very significant amount of time in terms of the length of the fire working. And I'm going to be upfront. I don't know if this is really going to do a whole lot. Because again, it doesn't change the fact that, you already have 30 seconds, 80 seconds of area denial with these two characters. 30 seconds isn't like an insignificant amount of time, right? 80 seconds, especially, not an insignificant amount of time. You can already shave off a pretty significant portion of the clock just with one of these two characters. Yes, like in a perfect world, you could theoretically block off one like really tiny narrow doorway with Tachanka for 140 seconds based off of this new change. He's going to be getting more projectiles. Instead of 14 fire grenades, he's going to get 20. And then the overall magazine size is reduced, which I find very strange that they did this and then did that. Tachanka's not, like, he's going to plug a hole from really far away, and then someone's just going to, see that and go, oh, okay, I'm going to go in this different direction instead. Like, theoretically, there is potential for this to work, given the right circumstances. But as it stands right now, defenders just really don't have, like, as much CC power. They don't have as much area denial power in terms of forcing attackers to make movement decisions. Not at least the same way that they used to back during, like, the Utility Simulator or 2020. If you played the game back then, you probably remember seeing Tachanka maybe once or twice in a Pro League game. There was an interesting pocket strat that I would see where Tachanka could use his fire grenades from a distance on Classical Hall by 90 on Villa, and he could fire off the main staircase there from 90. But again, the issue here, right? Back then, you had a ton of utility that the attackers had to clear out before they could actually try to make a play. So now everyone can just kind of run around a lot of this setup. Comparably to a game like COD, right? There is more stuff to take into consideration, but Tachanka definitely seemed to be a little bit more useful in that kind of environment where putting himself in such a vulnerable position with the launcher didn't really affect him as much. Not having your gun up in the current meta is just really, really crappy. It's just not a good position to be in. Okay, next cut. I just recorded the rest of this video without turning on the freaking mic button because my default devices were not set to my audio interface on this laptop I'm using, which is really cool. So I just lost like 10 minutes of work. But I'm gonna try to recenter myself and remember what the hell I was talking about because I felt really good about that last piece of commentary. So what I think Ubisoft needs to approach here with the Shumika launcher is I think they need to stop focusing so much on the, I guess, what do you want to call it? Like the artistic appeal of Tachanka, like the meme appeal. We've gone back and forth on this topic multiple times. This is a meme that's been around since like year 1, year 2. Tachanka the GOAT, Tachanka the Lord with the big LMG mounted and loaded, bruh, big Chungus. Okay, I know that people who, generally speaking, if somebody has a Siege Operator profile picture, their opinions on game balancing might not be very good. So there are going to be a lot of conversations where you say, hey, Tachanka is a bad character. He is bad in Rainbow Six Siege compared to other characters. And then someone will go, what? And we can only... These people have a reason to feel that way, I understand. But at the same time, I still think you got to balance the game at a competitive level. So what I would do to kind of bridge this gap, and this is something that Siege is always has been doing a pretty decent job at for the past couple of years with character design. I think they need to bridge that gap between like cool looking character design and viable character design, right? And so with Tachanka, they've put so much energy into this whole concept of he's this weird engineer guy. He has a fixation for older equipment, so he took an old bolt action rifle and then he MacGyvered some weird like grenade launching thing, and that's what, oh, he's so wacky and weird. He has a fixation for really old stuff. He's like a FUD. He's like a Russian FUD, and that's great. But I think Tachanka needs to come into the 21st century because this gadget, the problem with the gadget is the speed. It's the maneuverability aspects of it, right? Like you get out the thing and his gameplay, it's the same problem with Grim, right? Like he switches to his thing, the gameplay loop is super freaking slow, and he goes like, ka-dump, 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 switching mags, bink, bink, bink. And everything takes like 5 million years to happen. So even if he has a ton of area denial, or when I say ton of area denial, I mean a significant amount of time in terms of area denial, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it leaves him so freaking vulnerable, and then he can't area deny anymore if he gets freaking shot. So what I would do, I would give him a modern take on this design. I would just give him like a rapid fire, like semi-auto grenade launcher with a box mag, right? And he just goes like ding, 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 and then he can like, swap out the magazine, and then it's really quick. Get him into the 21st century, right? Is all I'm trying to say. Speed up the gameplay loop. Don't leave him super freaking vulnerable. Make it easy to use the gadget, not a pain in the ass. His pick rate will go up. And if people are like, oh, well, his whole thing is that he uses old equipment, well, then he had a character arc, okay? He had character development. Let's just put it that way. But that's how I would approach the situation right now. I don't think that adding a 1.5 or a 2 times to his VSN is gonna do anything. I don't see his pick rate going up too much as a result of this change, but who knows? This is all on paper, and what happens in practice could be 2 different things. Okay, real quick, scopes got swapped. Wamai gets his MP5K 1.5 back. Pog, I am an MP5K crutch. I'm very happy about this one. Oryx, T5 lost his 1.5. Not surprised by that. T5's crazy. Oryx is pretty good roamer. Capital, a little bit more smoke. Cool. Apparently, the duration of that smoke dart and the default smoke grenade were different. I didn't know. And I get paid to talk about Rainbow Six. Isn't that funny? Capkin lost his 1.5 on his 9x19. I don't get the point in this. Azami is definitely better than Capkin. And she doesn't have a 1.5, right? Because of that. So Capkin is as good as Azami. I know that that's kind of flawed logic to apply to the situation, but I can't help but make that comparison because I just don't see how Capkin was overtuned with the scope at the moment. It's kind of whatever. I'm not too pressed about it. Scope changes usually are kind of, it's very up to personal interpretation. Of course, Tachanka got a 2 times on his 9x19, which is I don't know about that. And then reduced the damage rating of the extended barrel to 12%. That may affect some guns. It may not affect some guns. The only way that I will really be able to know about that is when somebody does the math for me, because I'm not doing that myself. But that's pretty much it for this patch. Let me know if you guys like this change for the Tachanka, if you like my semi-auto fire grenade launcher idea. I think that might be a little bit better than what he has currently. I'd be interested to see if they got, a little bit more of a modern interpretation of that design. But that's all I got right now. Next time I talk to you guys, I'll probably be in Texas, which will be pretty sweet. So I'm looking forward to that. Peace out. Thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you all on the flip. Deuces.